Welcome to
Ping
Pong
Philosophy
with
Greg Restall.
Greg Restall is the Shelby Cullom Davies Professor of Philosophy at the University of St. Andrews. You can learn more about him and his work in the description down below.
Welcome, Greg.
Thanks. It's good to be here.
Thank you. I want to start by asking you what is a philosophical position or idea you wish it was true, but in your view it's not?
I think one of the things that would make my life a lot easier, and I wish was true, was the idea of minimalism about truth, that the only thing to say about the truth predicate is that it's true that P, if and only if P, it would make life a whole lot simpler. I don't think that's the case.
Unfortunately, that's not the case.
Yeah.
Greg, on what do you recently change your mind?
Yeah, one of the things that I've been working on recently is the interaction between modality, the notion of possibility and necessity, and the quantifiers. For all, some, there exists for all, those sorts of logical notions. And in the middle of spending time working on that, I became convinced that it absolutely does make sense to talk about things which don't exist but could have. So to talk about possibility, to talk about possibilia, things which could have existed but don't. I'm totally convinced that that's totally coherent to talk about those things.
Let's go to the opposite. What is a philosophical position you have cherished for a long time?
Yeah. Been thinking about this a bit. It's probably not something that people see as explicitly as a philosophical position, but something which I think is, fundamentally important and important to my own work, is the idea that understanding logical concepts by way of proofs and by way of models are both equally useful and both equally about semantics. So the idea that we shouldn't just be thinking about model theory as the thing which is doing expressing the meaning of things in terms of representation, that proofs and inference and rules of use and things like that might be equally semantically important. Yeah. I think that is something which has been sort of at the heart of my work for the last, probably 20 years or so.
Let's see if history gives you...
We will see.
All right. I'm going to switch to more your personal life as a philosopher. So what do you think is a text that all philosophy students should read?
Yeah. I don't know if you've noticed, but there's a lot of philosophy students, and I'm not enough of a megalomaniac to be able to kind of prescribe necessary reading for absolutely everybody. But something that I do think is really fruitful for philosophers who are interested in developing their views is to read things from outside their own tradition. So for people like me, people who do work in contemporary logic, I think reading things from different historical periods, different cultural traditions, I think that would be really useful. And I think that's also useful for people working in other areas of philosophy. So if you're a Kant scholar, read some contemporary stuff. If you're a contemporary person, read some Kant, read some Aristotle, read some Nagarjuna, read a whole bunch of different things.
All right, Greg. Thank you very much for that insightful answer. I now want to ask you a personal question, which is who is your favorite living philosopher?
Yeah, when you ask me this question, the person who immediately jumps to mind is my doctoral supervisor, Professor Graham Priest.
Shout out to Professor Priest.
Shout out to Graham. I was just having coffee with him, a few weeks ago in New York. He's a lovely man, very, very sort of productive and insightful and thoughtful philosopher, and has been a really important mentor to me. Now, I know I'm biased, but you asked me, who's my favorite, and that's my answer.
Well, these questions are supposed to have a bias.
Yeah, good.
Too, right? So, Greg, what is an area outside philosophy that you think philosophers should engage with more?
Yeah, I think something philosophers should engage with more, not only for them and for doing philosophy, but for the sake of the world, is politics broadly construed. I think in the contemporary age, where a whole bunch of different things are happening in the political scene, and there seems to be a great deal of polarization, people talking past one another, different forces, a lot of people seeming to not believe things that we thought were pretty fundamental, like, democracy and other things. I think that philosophers getting out there and being part of their sort of local communities and different kinds of forums where ideas are being discussed and people are arguing about things would be not only good for those places, but good for the philosophers themselves. So I think that's something that will become, ever more important in the coming years.
Okay, Greg, thank you very much for that answer. I want to move now to your professional life as a philosopher. So when was the first time you included texts written by you in a course you taught?
Yeah, because a lot of the kind of teaching that I do is undergraduate logic teaching, and whenever you get logicians that teach undergraduate logic, we don't like the things that other people have written and think that we could do it better ourselves. And yeah, I did this myself, and so ever since my first time teaching undergraduate logic, where I was replacing somebody else at my home institution, the University of Queensland, back in the early 1990s, I started, developing my own notes, which I kept on working and, just using as lecture notes for students. And then when was this? Yeah, this was in the early 2000s when I was teaching at Macquarie University. I was offered the opportunity for that to be published in a series at Routledge, and so it was in the early 2000s where that was a text that was actually published and written by me that I used teaching first year logic for a decade or so, and I've become very rich. Only joking. On the basis of that.
All right, Greg. So you have had the privilege, I guess, to teach in Australia for a long time, and now you're in Scotland. But can you tell between the two, which country has the best academic calendar?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I grew up both studying and then working in the Australian system, where in one sense, it seems very, very sensible in that the academic year is the calendar year. You start...
there's a Christmas break.
There's a Christmas break. It's in summer. It's a long Christmas break. It's when Christmas should be, in the middle of summer. And all of those things that I'm used to. But I must admit, I've come to like the Northern Hemisphere academic calendar, and in particular the Scottish version of it, where you have short semesters of 11 weeks, very intense teaching period, and then this sort of yawning long summer break where a lot of research can get done, and then you've got time to do a lot of research, and then also this time to actually take a little bit of a break before teaching starts in September. So I don't know whether I would say that's the best academic way that you could organize an academic calendar, but it works for me at the moment, so I'm enjoying
That's lovely. Greg, which institution organizes the best events?
Yeah, that's a good question as well. I don't know. I've been to a lot of academic events, but I've been to absolutely ginormous, massive colloquia like the Logic, Methodology and Philosophy of Science congresses, and I've been to small workshops. I really, academically speaking, love the small workshops the most, and one of the things that attracted me to the University of St Andrews, which is where I work now, is the Research Centre Arche that puts on lovely sort of small, intense workshops which last for 2-3 days, bring in some people from around the place that concentrate on a particular idea, and we all just sort of hang out. You hang out in St Andrews, where if you don't play golf, there's not really a lot to do other than hang out and talk philosophy, and these are workshops which are coordinated and organized by the graduate students, and they get to present their work in that kind of context, and I really, really enjoy them. So again, I don't know if they're the best, but they're the best that I've been to.
Thank you, Greg. Now I'm going to go back to some of the answers that we had, and I'm curious about your relationship with Graham.
Yeah.
Because there's admiration and there's respect, but there's no always agreement between you
of course not.
And I want to ask very briefly, how does this agreement functions when it comes to the question of logical pluralism.
Yeah, no,
because you're famous for pluralism.
Yeah,
well, Graham is not.
Absolutely, and in fact, I mean, it's interesting. You might think that this would be something that we would agree on, but no. And I'm a pluralist, Graham isn't, and that's been one really interesting way of. Over years trying to figure out exactly where our disagreement consists in. Because, that developing of logical pluralism, which, took, quite a few years for me to sort of sort out the ideas from the really late 1990s into the early first decade of the 20th century. Graham and I would come back and forth, and he'd, be there at a presentation that I'd give and ask me these questions and say, but you agree with me about this, and why doesn't that make you this? And I'd try and say, I agree with this, but no, I disagree with that, and we go around and around and around, and I think we've come to more of an idea of where our agreements and disagreements stand, but that takes quite a while, because often one of the interesting things, especially when you're doing sort of philosophical logic, you've got this lovely mix of the sort of precise and the technical and the formal connected to what are not necessarily clear ideas, which are the things which motivate things and the way that we understand the significance of those formal things. And you can often agree on a whole bunch of technical results and disagree about what they mean, and then trying to specify, okay, what does that consist in? And how you use words, even like, good argument or valid, and things like this, and what counts as a counterexample, and what things are context sensitive and what things aren't. That takes a heck of a lot of, back and forth to actually sharpen those ideas. And that's something that's been, really wonderful to have somebody that's as opinionated as Graham, as smart as him, but also as patient, and that we can do that kind of, ping pong of the back and forth.
Well, that was great to hear. And I just want to end this episode by asking you, why consequently?
Yeah, things follow from things. Things are consequences of things. It was a domain. It was a domain name that was available in the late 1990s and wasn't too expensive. So I snapped it up when it was available.
Well, that's great to hear, and thank you for all your answers. Right. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. I'm glad for the invitation.
Well, and I hope to see you in another another time.
You'll see me soon. Yeah, thank you.
All right, goodbye. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.
Hello there. I'm Pablo. I'm the host of Ping Pong Philosophy. Thank you for watching or listening until the end. I really hope you enjoyed the episode. Remember that you can like and subscribe to keep updated with everything we do here. Until next time.